What's up, y'all? It's Brian with the Unstuck Sessions. On today's episode, we are going to talk about when is the right time to raise your price. We're going to jump into the conversation, and you might be surprised at what some of the signs may be. We'll talk to you after the intro. Peace. Welcome back to the Unstuck Sessions. I help business owners get unstuck, and you can be stuck in a number of ways. And one of the big sticking points that people run into is pricing. And so, wanted to do a quick video to discuss what are some considerations that you have when it's time to raise your price. And you might be surprised at some of the answers. So, here's the thing: your price of your product or service determines a lot about your position in the marketplace. If you price yourself as a discount, people are going to treat you as a discount. I've gone over this a lot in a lot of other related videos, and you'll start seeing them popping up here as suggestions or wherever it pops up. Anyway, it's a major consideration, and it determines how people perceive your product or service. And so you want to spend a lot of time on the front end figuring out what a good starting price is. And there's a lot of things you want to consider. And it's not just the cost of providing the service or the cost of materials. You need to determine how much it costs to land the materials if you have to have them shipped. If you have to have other people's hands in the pot, like if you have to use other people's services, how much is that going to cost you? And you have to build in a margin for yourself so that this product or service is viable for you to continue to do. You got to think about advertising costs, even container costs, things. How much does it cost to package this thing that you've created? There's a lot of different things. And so those are the important considerations on the front end when you're determining the price. But let's say you already have your price set for your service, and we're going to use service specifically because that's normally what I work with, the service businesses. You have your price set for your specific service, right? And you are running into difficulties with implementing that service. Maybe you're not making enough to cover it, or you're underwater because you have so much work to do and you feel like you don't have enough time to do it and you can't afford to hire people to help you out. The cost of delivering the service outstrips the cost of delivering the service. You're having a problem and you need to consider raising your price. Here's some ones that you may not think about. You don't have enough customers. People aren't picking your service. That might be a pricing thing. They may think that your price is too low for the service that you're offering, and you can't possibly meet their quality considerations for that price. They may think you're a budget service, and they don't want a budget service. They want somebody that delivers a higher price. Now, the human mind correlates how much you pay for something with perceived quality. Some people have disassociated from that, but a lot of times we still fall back into that. And people will pay more for something they perceive as high quality. That's the real. And so if your service isn't priced high enough, where it's not reassuringly expensive, shout out to Ty Turner for Flash Films Academy for putting that one over. It's not reassuringly expensive, you might have a difficulty finding a client and keeping a client, because even though you may get them on the front end, they're going to be looking for a higher tier, somebody that charges them more. You find that in the personal training space. Personal trainers come in and they think that they're going to undercut everybody, but your client may be like, okay, I want more from this service. And instead of coming back to you and asking, okay, so what's the add-on? How do we add more value to this? How do I get more out of it? You're giving me great value. How do you make this value even better? They just go find somebody else who's going to charge them more. In a lot of cases, people will pay more to get less if they feel like it's higher quality. So how do you answer that quality question? You need to raise your price. Doesn't seem intuitive, does it? But if you're having struggles getting clients, you might not be asking enough for your services, because sometimes it sets off alarm bells when something is way too cheap. If you went to a steakhouse and they had a $2 steak there, are you going to order it? You're not even going to try it. You're not even going to test it to see if it's any good. So why set your business up to be the $2 steak on somebody's plate? You're going to analyze the market and things along those lines. I'm not a huge fan of using the market to determine how much you should charge for your product or service. Because if your product or service is worth what you're asking for it, then the market considerations really shouldn't be an issue because you're not really competing. The idea is competing on price is a race to the bottom. And I tell people that all the time. And a lot of people don't believe me when I say it. But if you're only competing on price and the only reason why customers pick you is because you're cheaper, you're setting yourself for a nightmare. I'm just being honest with you. You're always haggling, having to fight for every penny, never quite having enough to upgrade your equipment or get around or fix your car or pay your insurance. You don't want to constantly try to undercut and be labeled as that poverty service. I'm all for delivering a fair price, but sometimes what's a fair price is you need to build in a price that's going to replace your camera one of these days or fix your car one of these days. That needs to go into your price too. Because if you're a videographer and you travel, you require both to get to your destination. You speaking narrowly of videography, we're starting to see more and more videographers that exclusively use their smartphones, and they're running into a conundrum there because they don't look expensive when they show up. Now, the results may be amazing and it may outstrip some of the cameras, especially if they know what they're doing when it comes to lighting and framing subjects and doing a lot of the things that make a video aesthetically pleasing. They may be able to do all that stuff with that smartphone. But the guy who has the entire camera rigged out and kitted out and it looks more expensive is typically going to win the day in terms of the eyeball test, in terms of value. Because your average person isn't going to be able to pixel peep and tell the difference between, well, you used a $180 light versus a $4,000 light to light your subject. They can't tell that. They just know that you showed up with your iPhone. They're like, well, I have an iPhone in my pocket. Why am I paying them to do this? People opt towards more expensive stuff. And it's just a condition where we attribute more expensive to higher value. The value proposition is important because you can way over deliver on value, but if somebody feels like you're not charging enough, you're in a constant fight with their perception of you because they figure, well, if I can get this kind of service at this price, if I pay a little bit more, I should be able to get a higher quality service across town. And that may not always be the case. And people pretend like they like values. Like, yeah, I'd go out exclusively on Black Friday. And I only get those Black Friday deals, not knowing that the Black Friday deals are available any day of the week if you look hard enough. But people don't really see it that way. A lot of times you want to make sure that you're maintaining the good customer relationship. And you're scared that raising prices is going to run your customers off. But here's the reality. If people start seeing a degradation in your offering, in your product, you're going to have a problem. Because if you can't afford to deliver the same quality that they're used to, you're going to lose the customer. There was a restaurant that was in town here. I think it was Mimi's Cafe. And when my wife and I started going to, it was good. The food was really good, high quality, didn't cost a heck of a whole lot. Mid-tier kind of restaurant pricing, but it wasn't too bad. And you got a decent meal out of it. And slowly, the quality of the food that they started putting out started getting worse and worse. And I'm not talking about the preparation, I'm talking about the quality of the food, where you could tell stuff was a little bit more packaged and canned, and portions started shrinking up. And it started getting to a point where we're like, we don't want to go here anymore because the quality of the food took a hit, even though we're paying the same price. And we would have paid more for the meals if they maintained the quality. But they reduced the quality and tried to charge me the same. And that's not how it works. And you will not keep clients if you do that. It's easier to explain the price increase than the degradation in quality. And I got to be straight up with you. You don't want customers that are going to fight you every step of the way. There's a rule of thumb out here. If you could double your prices and lose less than half of your clients, why haven't you doubled your prices yet? Now, I'm not that draconian, I'm not that harsh with it, but I understand the concept of it. So, if you need to raise your prices to maintain your quality, that's an argument that you can absolutely have in the customer's mind because everybody knows the cost of everything's going up. And so they can anticipate that. But if you degrade the quality and then still want to charge me the same prices or even more for degraded quality, we gonna have a problem. And you see it. That's why people get so mad with shrinkflation in the grocery stores, bro. I get mad about it. You're actually charging me more for a smaller package? What? That doesn't wash. If you can't afford to deliver, you got to consider the price increase if you're having trouble with the delivery piece of it. And it's easier with services where you're providing a specific service to somebody, but when there's materials involved, you really do have to watch how much the cost of lumber is, or how much the cost of this is, or how much the cost of equipment is, and then set your price point in there to cover that cost, because the last thing you want to do is be losing money on new clients every single time. There is a time and place for that, but you got to plan it out. It's okay to have loss leaders as long as you know that they're going to make you money down the road. But every product cannot be a loss leader. You got to make a profit somewhere. All right. Timing considerations. Sometimes, depending on what industry you're in, sometimes a year things cost more than others. That's just the reality. And so you need to time it so that your on seasons supplement your off seasons. Like if things are more expensive around November, then you need to make sure that in June you are making enough money and you're not just giving discounts because things are cheaper at that point in time. Of course, there's ethical considerations. I never advocate gouging people. I don't advocate ripping people off, but you still do need to charge what you're worth and make a margin for yourself so that you can continue to provide health insurance for your kids and pay your car note and have a roof over your head. So these are things that you do need to consider. So we discussed why you should raise your price, and the surprising reason a lot of times is because you don't have enough customers, because people don't perceive you as a high quality product or service, just because you're trying to undercut everybody. You're too focused on that Walmart thinking where you're going to be the lowest in the market. And the reality is you are not Walmart. Walmart can sell at a cheaper price or at a discount relative to the entire market because they own the market. They have access to order inventory in numbers that you cannot match. And so they can be cheaper than everybody on the block, and they can drive people out of business because they're so cheap. So why would you want to compete with them for clients? You want to compete for the people that want to go to Nordstrom's instead of Walmart. That's what you need to look at. Let's see. Looking at your market, making sure that you're timing it the right way, making sure that you are really getting paid on your on season to offset the off season. You want to make sure that you're getting paid enough when business is great so that when business is slow, you have a windfall to fall back on. The value proposition, you want to make sure that you're still maintaining the same level of quality. You don't want to charge the same and degrade the quality because your clients will notice. Just be honest with you, and they won't appreciate you. They'll resent you for that. And make sure that you're keeping the lines of communication open. I'd rather have somebody say it costs more because it costs more to do business than just try to sneak those price increases on us. That's what it is. And then have your legal ethical considerations. Do not gouge people. It's not cool. It's not good business. I know a lot of people say you should get as much as you possibly can, and I understand how they think with it, but you do have to have some kind of moral boundaries around it and making sure that you're not absolutely just gouging people and the value that you're providing them matches what they're willing to pay. So sit down and take a long look at your pricing and sit down and look at the bottlenecks and the sticking points that you're finding within your business. And if you have a hard time or you feel like your pricing may be a sticking point, you need to sit down and shoot me an email at mail@isellwords.net so we can sit down and book your sticking points meeting and we can figure out how we're going to implement a strategy to make sure your pricing aligns with your product or service. I appreciate y'all's time. My name is Brian with Unstuck Sessions. Shoot me a message and get unstuck with me. I'll talk to y'all later.